Hey folks, hope you guys are having a great Saturday. I know I am. Let's get this show on the road a little bit here. Turn down that music. And we'll be going. February, I'm planning on doing a bunch of new music. So that's my plan for February for productivity. January, I've really enjoyed just hanging out with you guys and playing games. It's been a lot of fun. People have enjoyed the streams, which is great. And considering I'm streaming them in the middle of the night, most of the time, they've been doing okay. So, I don't know. Let's see. First thing I kind of want to talk about today, I'll update the video description as we go, I guess. First thing I want to talk a little bit about today is actually homeschooling. So, homeschooling is something that I think a lot of people are waking up to, given the lockdowns over the past year, where their kids have been stuck at home looking at a computer to learn rather than going to a school and sitting at a desk to learn. So I think a lot of people are more open to the idea of actually homeschooling their kids and actually doing that work themselves because they are already kind of doing that work themselves. So if you're doing the work yourself, might as well, go full bore with it and get all the benefits from homeschooling. So there's a bunch of things that are beneficial to homeschooling. So if you have kids or you're thinking of having kids, you might have kids one day, you have a significant other and you've talked about kids, it's good to have a conversation about homeschooling. And I'll tell you that most of the conversations I had with homeschooling with my wife revolved more around practical and performance aspects of homeschooling rather than some of the more, political things that you can actually get into with homeschooling. Of course, when you are handing your kid over to a system, then the dogma of that system is going to be part of that kid's education. So if you are concerned that public schools are going to have certain kinds of political dogma that are then transferred to your kids, I could tell you that that is definitely a reality, and it's done in a bunch of different subtle ways. One of the most obvious ones is that built into public education is the assumption that public education is a good. So children are raised to think public education is a good, that them going to school is a good for themselves and for society. And it's something that is only seems to be challenged once you grow up and you start to challenge a lot more of the foundational dogmas, maybe of how you were raised. I feel like my generation, Gen Y and Gen X to a certain extent, are both more into homeschooling and are more questioning of the system because we were raised with a failing institution, with public education that got consistently worse and was producing worse outcomes. And there was constant political talk about how we could fix public schooling. I feel like the millennial generation seems to buy into it more because they didn't see the deterioration of the institution. They were only experiencing the institution after most of the technical degeneration happened, and so they were fully encased in the dogma. There's plenty of millennials that are out of that, by the way. If you're younger and you're like, wait a minute, I don't believe, I'm just casting generally what I've noticed is that people who are a little bit younger than me, but maybe not the Zoomer age or whatever, they tend to be a lot more committed to the idea of public schooling as a universal good. So once we challenge that, let's actually talk about homeschool as something that, yes, you can do homeschool, and it is probably going to be more beneficial for your child than public schooling. So as an alternative to public schooling. So the arguments that I think were very convincing for most of the people in my life were simply performance arguments. Kids who are homeschooled do better across the board academically than kids who are not homeschooled. Now, I'm going to give you a slight caveat to that, which is that there is a strong selection bias when you are studying homeschool versus public school, because you are selecting for people who have a higher education in general, because they're making this decision, and people who are, shall we say, more interested in their children in general. So you are, even if lower income brackets, you're really making a comparison of different people. People who are very committed to their child's education and upbringing, even if they are poor, are of course going to have better outcomes, even if their kids are in the public school, than the kids whose parents are generally disengaged from the educational experience. Now, that's actually a good thing. You want to select for being involved with your children's education and give them a better education in general. But there's also many other technical reasons why you should consider homeschooling. One of them is that we group kids by age in public school. Now, before I go any further, I am a credentialed teacher. I have a cleared credential in the state of California, which means I could teach in a bunch of different states. I have taught public school. I've taught at the university level. I've taught private school. I've taught individuals like lessons, guitar lessons and things like that. I've been teaching for, at this point, almost 20 years. I know what I'm talking about. So at the public school, we group kids by age, and we consider the age grouping the most important thing. As soon as you know any amount of children more than like one or two, then you know that grouping by age is not academically efficient. You have a group of kids, they're all 10, they're all at different levels in the classroom as far as their skills, their learning potential in different subjects, their aptitude in different subjects, their interest in different subjects. So if you have Billy and Jane, Billy really likes math, Jane really likes stories. So Jane is a better reader than Billy, but they're both in the same classroom, and Jane has to sit around and wait for Billy to struggle through a sentence when you're doing the round robin reading thing to make sure that kids are reading the story, and you are basically doing a check on all of their skill levels. Jane has to sit through that bored to tears doodling in her textbook, not learning really anything because she's so far beyond what the other kids in the class who are needing help are at. Then consequently, she can't do math because the teacher is assuming that, because she's maybe below the level of everybody else, she ends up falling further and further behind in math. So at the high school level, which I taught at the middle school and high school level most recently, one of the things that we noticed is that there were kids that arrived as freshmen at the high school, and they would be so far behind in one subject that it was literally impossible for them to operate in the normal classroom environment in that subject. Maybe just in one subject, but it would be, say, math. And so we'd go back and we'd look at their grades, and they would have failed every math class from a certain point onward. So in fourth grade, they were getting a C in math, so they were passing. Fifth grade, F, and then Fs from then on to high school. Now, why did they make it to high school with Fs? Because we viewed the grouping of age as more important. It's more important that Billy is with other people that are the exact same age as him or within the same 12-month window as him than it is for him to actually learn math. So at the very core basis, very core organization of our public educational system, and this applies for private education too, because to get accreditation, you basically have to operate the same way a public school does. So this also applies for private school, and it's again why homeschool is really, to me, is superior to both private and public school. So we group kids by age rather than by ability level, and that is very academically inefficient. Either the kid is bored or he's behind, and only if you're one of those kids that's right in the middle of the average on everything and equally interested or disinterested in all your subjects is public school going to throttle you through at the appropriate speed for things. So if you're homeschooling, that means that you can have you could focus on your kids' weak points as much as you need to, and you can let them have accelerated learning with their interests and their strengths as much as you want. So the throttle is completely flexible on any subject that you're doing. I'll use my son as an example because he's in kindergarten right now. His reading level is way past where his age mates would be if he were in school. He would be completely bored to tears in a public school trying to read 3-word sentences when he can read basically at a 3rd grade level already. Now, his handwriting, however, he hates doing handwriting because he's bad at it. It's not really like behind his age level, but it's something that you have to really kind of coax him to go through and actually work on it. So his handwriting is not really at the same level as his reading at all. And that creates a little bit of a problem because he can compose sentences that he has difficulty physically writing down. So I came up with all kinds of different ways to work on this. So one of the things I did with reading was I had a 100-book challenge last year. And for that 100-book challenge, I had this stuffed Skeleton Bowser toy because he loves Skeleton Bowser. He thinks Skeleton Bowser is just this really cool character in a couple of Mario games that we've seen him. So if he read 100 books, he got this prize, this Skeleton Bowser. Well, wouldn't you know it, once I put that skeleton Bowser up on top of the fridge and had that chart on the fridge for him to check off, well, he was reading like 4 or 5 books a day, and his reading accelerated so much. Now, he was already ahead, but he got so far ahead on his reading that there's now this massive gulf between this skill level and other skill levels. So we have to kind of bring the others up. So imagine at school, you have a kid who's like not that interested in reading. How do you get him to be interested in reading? You have a 100-book challenge for him. Well, what about all the other kids, right? So you get to individually attend to the needs of your kids in a way that you just can't do at a public school. So their learning is at the maximum, has the potential at least for the maximum acceleration in every subject according to their aptitude and interest, which is going to help them develop faster and be smarter and be more competent in all of their academic subjects by the time they reach the end of school. Now, the thing that brings me to the next argument. Again, why they group kids by age, not by ability. It's because academics, that is teaching kids actual things, is actually not the main goal of public education. It's not the main goal in fact, because otherwise you would group kids by their ability level, not their age group. So it's organized, obviously, not to get to any kind of goal of teaching kids the most that they can learn or making them the best kid that they can be or anything like that. Rather, you group them by age because that's where they are socially supposed to be. As soon as you spend any time with kids, you know that group 35 10-year-olds, some are socially advanced and some are socially not advanced. And they're behind in different ways. Some kids tell age inappropriate jokes. Some kids understand things that are way past their normal social level. So the idea that age grouping is for social reasons is also basically bunk. Really, the whole point is to, I think, condition children to act a certain way as adults. That is, to adhere to the employee mindset, which is show up at work at a very specific time. You have to show up at school at 8 a.m. You have to show up at work at 8 a.m. You have to do the work your boss tells you to do until you are released from your duty. And then we even add things like homework, where it's like when you go home, you have to keep being a diligent worker when you go home. This produces a set of conscientious behaviors that are beneficial to industrial society, but are not necessarily beneficial to the individual child or the individual as an adult. So the main thing is schools aren't really there to educate you. They're there to condition children into certain ways of acting that are viewed as, quote, good for society. But I don't really think that that's necessarily the case. If I get to more of my political side here, the idea of conditioning someone to be a good employee is basically conditioning them to be a good slave. That is to say, you do whatever the master wants you to do, whatever the taskmaster deems that you should do during the times in which you are required to work before you are released. This is more like classical slavery rather than, say, American, like the American style slavery system before the Civil War. Classical slavery, you're slave, you were bound to your master, but you could actually earn wages. Slaves got wages, they got money, and they could even buy their freedom back in the classical period. So that's basically what you are asked to do, is like buy your freedom. Take out a huge loan on a house, go to work 8 to 5. And if we zoom far enough back, the economy basically views workers as a bunch of little interchangeable cogs. They're skill sets that happen to inhabit this shell called a human being. And so all the humans are interchangeable and movable as will at will. Oh, well, we need skill sets like this over in this city. We'll have everybody move here by offering a little bit more money for that skill set. I'm very cynical about that approach to humanity. And I think actually the internet, if the internet persists, could offer a solution in that people could choose to live in a community of their choice and then work remotely wherever their specific intellectual skills are needed. That would be a big boon to society. It would be a return to actual physical community of people that are like-minded individuals, share culture, share values, share a common interest in their locality and are willing to invest in it, rather than infinitely mobile, movable worker cogs that have no roots and no sense of permanency in what they're doing. That's basically what's happened to the Gen Y and the millennials, who've been completely atomized to where we have no community and no place to live. Well, if you're homeschooling, then you get to avoid that kind of conditioning. Now, there's some other objections to homeschooling that people come up with. Oh, they're going to be like socially retarded or something. And unless they're sitting in a little box, not permitted to talk to their friends for 8 hours a day, they get to do recess. Well, when you get down to it and you pull it all away, the only actual social time that kids have at school, unless they're breaking the rules, is recess. So why don't you give your homeschool kid recess for 30 minutes to an hour a day? That's what I do with my kids. I take them to the playground. All the neighborhood kids are there. They're not going to school every single day of the week now either. They go in like 2 days a week for some reason. I don't know. They have no idea what they're doing to try to stop kids from spreading their germs around. It's like only when you get a virus that could potentially kill grandma are you like, oh, kids are like germ factories. What do we do? Why are we having 40 kids in a room sharing snot with each other? This is actually not a great thing. Yeah, it's not. But if you homeschool them, then you don't have to worry about that, about constant like colds and things like that. Anyway, so I take them to the playground. They play for like an hour to 2 hours a day. They get more play at the playground with kids of a variety of ages and different social levels who are friendly and will actually teach them different things. The older kids are quite happy to teach younger kids how to play different games, how to play tag, how to play soccer, or whatever it is. This is how you throw a ball. This is how you do this. They're actually pretty happy to teach because then they feel like the superior being. You know, they feel like I'm in charge and I'm teaching somebody how to do something because I know how to do it. So they get, 2 hours of social play every single day, and it's unstructured. They have to actually socialize with kids. That's more than what kids get at public school, where they have to show up in the morning. They get a 10-minute recess in the morning, maybe a 10-minute one in the afternoon, 30 minutes of play for lunch, if that, usually 20 minutes. Then they go home and they have to do 4 hours of homework. Brings me to my next thing. It's more time efficient. Turns out most of the day in public school is completely wasted. Now, I'm going to get to chat here, but I really want to focus on what I'm talking about. It's completely wasted because you lose all kinds of time in transitions. Just think about a high school. You have maybe 5 or 10-minute passing periods. That adds up to make a wasted hour every single day in transition. Plus, you're losing 5 minutes at the beginning of a class to take roll. Before you know it, you're at 2 hours of wasted time during the day, during a high school day, which means there's only 4 to 5 hours of actual work being done, tops. Now, because you gain efficiency, like I talked about, because you're not wasting time where you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the teacher to help the kid who's way behind you, you can end up doing even high school level work in just a couple of hours a day. I don't have a homeschool high schooler, but I have family that have done it, and it's like they would get through their lessons in 3 hours a day, no homework. Why would you have homework? You don't have homework. That's independent practice. And you have your teacher, your parent there to help you if you need it. And the parents actually end up with more free time too because they're not working. That's a bunch of extra time during the day that they can do other things. Start a business outside their home or something like that. Of course, I have a business with like YouTube and selling books. So I still have a job and I homeschool. And so that's the other thing too. I don't have time to homeschool. Well, it takes way less time to homeschool than it does to send your kid to public school. You gain a ton of efficiency. So in the extra time that you get, what are you going to do with your kids? Well, you can teach them to farm. That's what we do with my kids a lot of times, though I'm not great at managing time. It's one of my worst things with my kids. I tend to just let them play all day, but they get to play, and playing is a kind of learning too. And imagine that you're giving your kid a childhood with 3 times as much free time and play as the other kids. That's going to be really beneficial to them, and they're going to have a very happy childhood as a result, rather than having to sit in a little desk and not have to ask permission to go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. So you get to have a lot of extra time to do extra stuff. Learn music, learn art. Your curriculum could be whatever you want. Next one there. This was a complaint I think I addressed on Twitter, this idea that parents aren't good teachers. Well, the first time you do something, you're probably going to suck at it. Seems like a normal expectation. First time you decided to pick up a ball, you probably don't remember it, but you were probably not good at it. The first time that you tried to do anything, if you tried to play guitar the first time, you could probably play one note. You're not good when you start doing something. Well, neither are first-year teachers, and I don't think a lot of parents just pull their kids out of public school because they find out that their teacher is only 24 or something. What? We have a first-year teacher teaching my kid? Unacceptable. They don't know how to teach because they've never done it before. The only thing that's different between you as the parent and the teacher is that the teacher has done more teaching. The idea that there are educational experts and that their special education tools will enhance their teaching ability is just not true. It's really all experience, and most master teachers will tell you it's all about experience. You learn how to teach by teaching. You got to get in the classroom and do it to figure out how to do it. So your teacher prep programs, they're really about talking dogma. They are really about imparting dogma to students. It's mandated by the state. So like I had to take a diversity and equity class. This was a class about how white people bad and how even black teachers are racist against black students. That was an actual conclusion in the book and in the class, and we had to write essays about this, about racism and stuff. So it's just dogma. The other big one was technology. I had to take a whole class on educational technology. Well, if educational technology was so important, you'd think it would have had an effect on outcomes, when in fact it has had a net negative in general. They've actually done studies on this. Turns out kids with laptops don't have any higher academic achievement than kids using pen and paper. And in fact, they have found that teachers don't like the laptops because they disrupt the learning experience. They they distract kids. They end up being a net negative. They inhibit the classroom environment and they don't yield any extra positives. So this has been studied many times, So the point I'm trying to make here is that technology is a dogma. Diversity and equity is a dogma. This is what we had to take classes on. And none of that stuff really ends up helping you in the classroom. And even things that focus on teaching techniques, it's like reading a book about how to throw a baseball. How are you going to learn to throw a baseball? Oh, let me see. Okay, you put your left foot forward. Okay, my arm needs to be behind my shoulder, and I need to pull with my pectoralis major, and I can throw the ball like this. You got to pick up a baseball and throw it to learn how to throw a baseball. And you got to get in the classroom and teach to learn how to teach. Same thing with writing, by the way, guys. People ask, how can I improve as a writer? Just do it. Sit down and write every day. And within 1 year, which is really not that long to practice a skill, you will have gained in ways that you can't even fathom. At the end of that 1 year, if you're writing even just a couple hundred words a day, you will grow so tremendously in your skills. You can't even believe it. So it's the same thing with teaching. Just give yourself a little while. Just know that you are probably going to be suboptimal at it. I'm suboptimal at it because it's very different from teaching in the classroom. But your kid's going to benefit as you get better and better at it. Not only that, but your kid is still going to be ahead even if you're not good at it because of all the other advantages, the efficiency bonuses. Plus, your kid is one-on-one, so it's one maybe subpar teacher with one kid that can exactly figure out what he needs and try a million different things and cares about his outcomes, versus one possibly bad teacher you don't even know before your kid gets in the classroom, and 35 kids that they have to deal with and try to meet all their needs for. So the one-on-one, you're going to gain a lot more from the one-on-one. If you're seeing the light go brighter and darker, it's because it's cloudy and then bright, and I have a window right here. So anyway, that's homeschooling. Yes, and you can do it. You have the skills to do it. You have the ability to do it. What most parents have a hard time thinking about is, when both my kids are in school, that frees up both parents to work. That's a lifestyle adjustment. You may have to get rid of a car. You may have to rethink how you do your lifestyle. But it turns out that, kind of due to involution, working that extra job doesn't really yield you any extra leisure time or extra stuff. And as you maybe shrink your lifestyle down or focus more on maybe a slightly simpler lifestyle, you'll find that you didn't really need that extra job. It was getting eaten up in things like daycare, gas, eating out, things like that. So just a smart budget adjustment and a commitment to doing it will probably end up within a short adjustment period, yielding all those dividends: a better time with your kids, more time with your kids. You can miss them growing up, right? They're only kids once. You get more of that precious time with your kids. You get more time maintaining your house, cooking homemade meals, let's say, and less time eating out, and your kids get a better education. So in general, you can make this commitment. Yes, the big one I think that people have a hard time wrapping their mind around is having a one income household, but it's possible to do. I think mostly we've been trained to just exclude it, to think that it's impossible to have a one income household. Yeah, you may have to do lifestyle adjustments, which is better to do when your kids are young or before you have kids, to think about this ahead of time like me and my wife did, than it is to build up your lifestyle and buy a bunch of stuff and have new cars. We drive old cars. Our cars are old. They're over 10 years old at this point. But they still run, and I'm going to maintain them and use them as long as I can use them so that I don't have to buy a new car. We made those decisions about our lifestyle level before we got married and had kids, and so there's really not... we don't really have to think that much about it. Like right now, my wife is working a little bit further away from home because there was a lot more money involved. And the idea was that was going to be temporary because we're giving up time. It takes time to commute. And so you're getting paid for that extra time, but you don't want to do that forever. It's like once we achieve certain financial goals, hopefully we'll be able to let go the higher income job and go step down to a lower income job that's closer to home. We think about these things too, but everybody's so focused on trying to make the most money, they don't really think about all the trade-offs. So I'd encourage you guys to think about the trade-offs. And yes, you can do it. You can homeschool your kids and you can give them benefit. If you don't have kids yet, start thinking about this and talk with your partner about it, and talk about it if you're going to date a man or a woman, and think about how you're going to raise your kids, have that be part of the conversation. And you'll find it's actually very easy to convince people who are very, very committed to public school experience that they can do that. The last one I'll mention is probably sports. I was talking to someone, I think I was talking to Dean on Twitter, Dean Bradley. I don't think he watches the streams, but he's another author and he's in Texas. And I'm from Texas originally. And so I know this. Football's big. Sports are big. They're a big cultural deal. And the high school, especially in smaller towns, and there's lots of little towns in Texas. I'm from one, I'm from Lufkin. The football team is a big deal. And so being on the football team and everyone focusing on that is a big enough deal that people will probably want to send their kids to public school just to have access to sports. But there's other sports you can do that are outside of school. Because of the way that society's been arranged, our team sports tend to get organized through the school. So you're making a big trade-off in that your kid's getting a suboptimal education and having to sit in a little box and be trained to be a good employee so he could play a team sport. If the kid is not going to be playing football, that's actually not an option for my son because he has hemophilia. It's just too dangerous a sport for that. But he could do other things which are way more fun, I think. Like, he could take fencing or something, right? So there's a lot of other sports that he could do that are more individual, and even team sports. Because soccer traditionally hadn't been done through schools, you can do AYSO or club soccer. There's lots of sports that you can get your kids involved in that aren't attached to school. So you just have to think a little bit outside the box for that. Or, if you're really industrious, you could start up a homeschool football league or something, or just start up an intramural football league that is not attached to any school. You can always do that. Anyway, let's take a look at the chat, and then we'll have a little bit of fun today. I think I finished my soda. I brought a second one because this one was from this morning. Can't stream without the Coke Zero, you know what I'm saying, guys? All right. Do you think it would be a good idea to talk about homeschooling not only to your spouse or future spouse, but with your friends about finding houses to buy near each other? I think that's a great idea, and I think maybe that might be the future, is that people are intentionally choosing to live near others that are like them. I live near others that are like me basically by happy accident, but it really right now it has more to do with income level. People who can afford a certain house have a certain income level. Therefore, the people at that certain income level are a lot like them often. But I think as our cultural schism increases, that's not always going to be the case. And you may want to find ways that people who are, say, of the same faith can live in a similar community with different kinds of income levels. So, people who are, say, devoted Catholics can move to a place where there's a lot of Catholics and there's a Catholic church nearby, and maybe there's some housing that's a little bit cheaper over here and some that's a little bit more expensive over here. But it's one of those things that if you have a tight-knit community of whatever faith it happens to be, you're going to have less friction between economic groups and less crime in general because people are more tightly bound in their community. There's a lot more things that regulate that human behavior. There's very poor communities in, say, the Appalachians that have no crime because, well, everybody knows each other and everybody's okay with each other. Even though they don't make a lot of money, they don't commit a lot of crimes against each other. Crimes are generally part of antisocial behavior, so it's either the result of some problem with an individual person or it's somebody who doesn't view another area or another group with social ties in mind. Where I live in California, where I lived before, all the crime was committed from people that weren't in the area. In other words, they came in from a bad part of town to rob cars or steal things, to break into houses and steal PlayStations so they could buy meth. That's not people in the community. If you have actual people in the community, I think it's you have a little bit less. If you wanted to build a tight-knit, high-functioning community, you could pull your money together for one of your friends into the school and know how to teach the kids in the community. Yeah. There's also homeschooling co-ops which is the parents work together. So this can also free up time too. So you have, let's say I'm going to homeschool with my brother and sister-in-law, right? Because I know that they are maybe interested in it. Well, maybe we work something out where it's like, I teach these subjects and she teaches these subjects, or bring them over for these things that she can teach, and she brings her kids over for the other things that I can teach. And so if there's some kind of gap in your skill, you can fill that in. Or even if you're completely illiterate and you still want to homeschool your kids, and there's people in this boat that they want the best education for their kids, even though they themselves are not very well educated. Parents love their kids, So this is a thing. Well, maybe I could trade or pay somebody else to school my kid. Maybe, I could do their gardening and and then they'll teach my kid. Homeschooler and co-ops exist, and they generally are pretty positive about that sort of thing, like figuring out how, you can get those kids involved. And then they're plugged into like a little smaller community. I haven't heard of kids dying in a homeschool shooting. Yeah. All right. So this is extreme risk. Like, this is very rare risk. That school shootings are so extraordinarily rare, no one would really consider them a significant risk when they step out of the house in the morning. But there's a 0% chance of your kid being in a school shooting if he's homeschooled, right? So 0. And I actually did this after there was some school shooting. Everyone's like, we need to take away guns and we need to throw all the Republicans in prison because they have the guns. I'm like, why don't you just homeschool your kid? Then I'm so afraid for my kids. Why don't you homeschool them? What? You can't do that. They're so programmed to think that their kid has to go to this institution and sit at this desk and listen to a teacher tell them what to do for 7 hours a day. It's really hard to break that conditioning. You've been conditioned from a little kid to think that this is normal and appropriate. Historically, it's very anomalous what public schooling is. And there's also evidence, this is from when they made schooling compulsory over 100 years ago. It reduced literacy rates. So once you made schooling compulsory to get those kids whose parents just won't teach them, darn it, you lowered general literacy rates in general. The institution was worse at teaching reading than the parents were, even when they were marginally engaged with their kids' learning. I've been experimenting with homeschooling with my 4-year-old. My biggest roadblock is knowing what's age appropriate to teach. Here's the thing. I got history flashcards that are way too advanced for her, and the math stuff I found is completely trivial for her. Yeah, you have to figure out what works for that kid. Every kid is different, and they're going to excel in different ways. My kid does like second grade math. Starting with kindergarten math, it was just too simple for him. It just was. And so when we do math, we do concepts, and then we do lots and lots of repetition of like addition, subtraction, that kind of stuff. So that's mostly math, is like doing lots of arithmetic, lots of computing. So it's just lots of practice. And for him, kindergarten math would be so boring. It's like, which number is bigger than the other? It's like, that's nothing for him. You need to go faster. So when you're homeschooling, you get to accelerate as much as you want. You make your kid, I will get worksheets from second grade, from third grade for my son. Fourth grade sometimes, depending if we're talking about geometry, which he thinks is fun. Well, I got to go up to like upper elementary school to talk about like any kind of geometry thing that's other than, this is a triangle. Okay. Yeah, he knew what a triangle was when he was 1, right? That's not enough for him. But maybe the handwriting part is too advanced. We have to go back and remediate that. So you get to go really, really finely gradated instruction for your kid. You get to get really, really specific. So it's whatever's best for them. And it's really, really helpful that way. It's very underrated because that way your kid is getting the highest acceleration for every subject that you can do. And then the kid, if they're really interested in one subject, well, they get to do that one a lot. My son loves to read and make up stories. So that's what he would prefer to spend all of his time on. Yeah, he has to get some math done. Even though he's advanced in math, he's not that interested in math. It's kind of boring for him and just like tedious. But there's other things he loves to do, and he gets to really do lots of those. And so that's good too. He loves to do art, loves to draw. All those things are part of learning. The Soviet Union, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. Joe Biden removed the Diet Coke button. Why would you do that? I love that idea. It's like, beep, I need more Diet Coke. Got some negotiating to do with Rocket Man over in North Korea. What's your opinion on Cormac McCarthy's writing style? I'm trying to think what I've read from him, if anything. Lots of people ask about authors that they like, and what did he read? Oh, Blood Meridian. I still haven't read those. Sorry. He did write No Country for Old Men, which was a cool movie, but I didn't ever read the book. Oh, he's still around. Notable works. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. There's lots of stuff I haven't read. There's millions of books, and I've only read some of them. Making a homeschool kid to do Common Core is child abuse. Common Core gets a lot of a bad rap. Common Core math, for example, is about thinking of different ways of doing math rather than like rote memorization. And it's just actually not that bad. It's just you always find like the examples that are ridiculous, like making people do extra steps to do math. But some kids think better that way. For instance, if I'm going to think, hey, what's let me think of like an easy one. What's 12 times 12? Well, I think it's 144, right? I think it's 144. But there's an easy way to figure that out, which is, okay, 12 times 12. Well, 12 times 10 is 120, right? Plus 24, which is 2 times 12. So you break it into two easier to do math problems and you add them together, 144, right? So your brain can often do calculations more accurately by breaking it down into smaller steps. And that's what a lot of Common Core does. So Common Core math actually gets a bad rap. I can tell you that as a teacher. And I have friends who are math teachers, and like it gets a bad rap because it's not doing the same process over and over again. But you always just see like the bad examples, the really kind of just silly things. He used little to no pronunciation, quotations, etc. Some people think it adds to his work. Some think it makes it a chore to read. Personally, I think any stylistic deviation from what's standard is generally a negative. It's very hard for it to be a positive. I think one of the ones I remember trying to read was Train Spotting. Let me see if I can find an example from it. It's written basically with like a Scottish dialect. So it's really hard to read. By Irving Welsh. So let me see if I'll just read, like, maybe I could read the first page or show it to you and you'll get the idea here. Where's the first page? It's a thanks page. Yeah, here we go. Let me show it to you. I'll just show it on screen, and you'll see why this is. I don't recommend doing this. All right, here we go. The sweat wish lashing oofy sick boy. He was trembling. The sweat was lashing off a sick boy. He was trembling. I was just sitting there, focused on the telly, trying not to notice the cunt. He was bringing me down, and it tried to keep me attention on the Jean-Claude Van Damme video. As happens in such movies, they started off with an obligatory dramatic opening. Then the next phrase I pictured involved building up the tension through introducing the dastardly villain and sticking the weak plot together. Any minute now, old Jean-Claude's ready to get down to some serious swigging. Rinse. I've got to see Mother Superior. Sick boy gaped, shaking his head. Oh, I says, this is a chore to read, and unless I'm reading it out loud trying to replicate a Scottish accent, which you heard me trying to do. Hey, it's a Scottish accent in it. It's annoying. This is not what you wanted. Now, this is very creative, maybe, but the question is, what are you trying to do as a writer? Are you trying to communicate to another human being? What are you trying to communicate? The medium is part of that. So I am for clear writing is what I am for. And that's the way I try to write. I don't try to fussy things up. I don't try to make things obscure. I don't try to make things overly subtle. You want to tell the story. If you want the reader to like the story, tell them the story and use the tools that you have available to you that will allow them to understand what you're saying. So writing something in this kind of grammatical thing. Now, if you heard a Scottish person simply reading this out loud as an audiobook, it might work. But reading it on the page, your brain is having to do so much extra processing because you see the arrangement of letters as the word, as the idea when you're normally reading. You don't think of what it sounds like always when you're reading. Even though we think of as English as phonetic, it's not really a phonetic alphabet. It's semi-phonetic. But really, we start to group words together in a symbolic way, So it actually becomes, when you're reading quickly, the word flies into your mind as the concept more so than the sound of the word being read. They call him Sick Boy, not just because he was sick with junk withdrawal, but because he's just one sick cunt. Let's fucking go, he snapped desperately. Hold on a second. I wanted to see Jean-Claude smash up this arrogant fucker. If he went now, he wouldn't get to watch it. I'd be too fucked by the time we got back. And in any case, it would probably be a few days later. That means he'd get hit with fucking back charges for the shop on a video. And he didn't even get no ticket. He didn't even get a ticket. Sorry for the language, but it's in the book. I've got to fucking move, man, he shouts, standing up. He moves over to the window and rests against it, breathing heavily, looking like a hunted animal. There's nothing in his eyes but need. I switched the box off at the handset. Fucking waste. That's what he is. A fucking waste. And snarled at the cunt. The fucking irritating bastard. He flings back his head and raises his eyes to the ceiling. I'll get you the money to get you back out. Is that all your fucking money moosey faced about? 50 measly fucking pits. But tell you, Reeds, it's got his way of making you feel a real petty, trivial bastard. That's not the fucking point, I says, but without conviction. There's a long British tradition of writing novels in Scots dialect back to the 18th century. I'm not familiar with it. I don't remember it. Like the Scottish writers I've read are like Sir Walter Scott, who doesn't really do that. I don't remember Sir Walter Scott doing that, but maybe I haven't read enough. I don't think they're in a Scottish dialect. I would not call that, not like this, where you're misspelling every single word. This is like what we would call patois in the extreme. Now, if you're reading it out loud, it has a certain thing. Like, you have to basically read it out loud to get what's going on. And it's kind of funny if you read it out loud. Like, I think this might actually be a good audiobook, but it's probably not the best way to write a book if you want people to understand it. You want your audience to get it. I tried doing that once in German, then I realized I can write a single dialect in 3+ different ways. That's true. Space Ghetto, what did we talk about? Do you remember the brother and sister on the island in The Wizard of Earthsea? Yes, I do, I think. I absolutely adore that meaningful melancholy. I saw a bit of it in Eyes of the Wall, so thank you. Yeah, I like Earthsea a lot. The first couple books, I feel like they get way worse after a while. And because they're so like disconnected from each other, I don't know. I think they just get way too melancholy towards the later ones. Anyway, so that's my advice: is try to write clearly. Would you consider doing an interview with Patrick Smith? Yeah, I need to get back to him. He sent me a Twitter link. Yeah, I kind of want to do one of his podcasts, but I've been super busy. I've been super busy lately. Like my mother-in-law's in the hospital right now. She's having open heart surgery tomorrow. My father-in-law's having to be taken care of by other family on the coast. I just have a lot going on, and then I haven't slept that much this week because just lots of weird things with kids. So I've been super busy the last week. I really need to get back to Patrick. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, I don't think Walter Scott writes it. I mean, we can look it up. Let's look up Ivanhoe. I do recommend everybody should read Ivanhoe. I mean, even though it is, well, there's like an illustrated edition. That might be fun. Here you go, Penguin Classics. Even though it's dialectically, anything you get before Dickens is going to have some dialectic challenges as an American, unless you're reading something like James Fenimore Cooper, James Fenimore Cooper is very readable today, in my opinion, and I think they're great classic adventure novels. And one of the first series that we would consider an actual like book series is the Leatherstocking Chronicles. Now, they technically occur out of chronological order with each other as far as their release date goes, but they're definitely worth reading. That's like Last of the Mohicans and those books. So, here's the Ivanhoe annotated. Why not? Let's take a look inside and see if we can just get to a page. A bunch of we don't even get to the actual text. Let's click the Kindle one, and maybe we can. I think I have some Kindle version of it, and I have a physical version somewhere. I just don't want to find it. We don't want annotated. Is there just like a... Anyway. Let's find it online here. Yeah, Project Gutenberg has one. Here we go. And it looks pretty nice, too. Look at this. It was originally in 3 volumes, so if you find any of the 3-volume versions, they're pretty cool. Thus commuted these, while to their lowly dome the full-fed swine returned with evening home, compelled reluctant to several sties, with din ostiparous and ungrateful cries. In that pleasant district of merry England, which is watered by the river Don, there extended in ancient times a large forest, covering the greater part of the beautiful hills and valleys which lie between Sheffield and the pleasant town of Doncaster. The remains of this extensive wood are still to be seen at the noble seats. Oh, he used the passive voice. It's not wrong to use passive voice. The noble seats of Wentworth or Warncliffe Park, and around Rotherham. Here hunted of yore the fabulous dragon of Wantley. Here were fought many of the most desperate battles during the civil wars of the Roses, and here also flourished in ancient times those bands of gallant outlaws whose deeds have been rendered so popular in English song. Such being our chief scene, the date of our story refers to a period towards the end of the reign of Richard I. Like, it's very readable. Now, it's wordy, but it's very readable. When we get to the dialogue's pretty clear here, too. Truly, said Wampa, without stirring from the spot, I have consulted my legs upon this matter, and they are altogether of an opinion that to carry my gay garments through these sloughs would be an act of unfriendship to my sovereign person and royal wardrobe. Wherefore, Gurth, I advise thee to call off things and leave the herd to their destiny, which, whether they meet with bands of travelling soldiers or of outlaws or of wandering pilgrims, can be little else than to be converted into Normans before morning. To thy no small ease and comfort. The swine turned Normans to my comfort, quoth Gurth. Expound that to me, Wamba, for my brain is too dull and my mind too vexed to read riddles. Why, how can you call those gaunting brutes running about on their 4 legs? Demanded Wamba. Swine, fool, swine, said the herd. Every fool knows that. And swine is good Saxon, said the jester. But how call you the sow when she is flayed and drawn and quartered and hung up by the heels, like a traitor? Pork, answered the swineherd. I'm very glad every fool knows that too, said Wamba. And pork, I think, is good Norman French. And so when the brute lives, as is the charge of a Saxon slave, she goes by her Saxon name, but becomes a Norman and is called pork when she is carried to the castle hall to feast among the nobles. What dost thou think of this, friend Gurth, huh? Right, like it's not phonetic, but it's really good. It's not modern, so there's going to be a little bit of adjustment there. But generally you can get that this guy's telling a joke about how Saxons are treated like dogs. They're treated like garbage by the Norman conquerors. This is after the Norman conquest. And when they're invited to feast, they're not considered equals. They're, what do you call a pig when it's been slaughtered? Well, I call it pork because we eat it, You're probably not seeing all of the words, I realize, because this is all cut off. So maybe I can get it a little, there we go. Get a little bit centered here. So yeah, you can read this for free. Why not? Here you go, guys. Read Ivanhoe for free. It's a great story. It's got Robin Hood in it, guys. It's got lots of great stuff. Dog, thou wouldst not betray me, and having led me on to speak so much at disadvantage. So they're talking about how this is basically a mood setting so that the Saxons are treated like garbage, and even when they're brought to a feast, they're not really, it's not as equals. Rather, it's because they're entertainment or they are something else. They're meat. You marry the daughters not because you consider them equals. Okay, anyway. We got some great pictures here too. Anyway, you can check that out. Do you know where I could get a solid copy of the Elric of Melniboné books? I'm trying to become more educated in my genre, but the only decent ones I could find are all like $60 plus a book. I lent it to my brother-in-law. There's a series of them that are really very complete. And also I would recommend you try used bookstores. So I got my copies, all of my Elric books I got at used bookstores at a very cheap price. I'm talking like I paid $3 for the original DAW paperbacks, like $3 a piece for those. Very cheap. There's a lot of them out there. You just have to go looking. There is on Amazon, you can buy there's like a complete series of them that has a bunch of extra stuff with them, including like the comic book scripts and things like that. They're printed in England, I think, so they're English. But those I would recommend, and they're only like $15 a book, which is pretty manageable, and you get a lot of material in that $15. It's a normal value. But yeah, I would try used bookstores. I got all of mine at used bookstores. I always look at used bookstores first if I'm looking for older stuff in particular, which these days is mostly what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for like a Poul Anderson book, I'm probably going to be hitting up the bookstore, the used bookstore, rather than going off Amazon or something like that. I'll just say about Howlat that Turtle is written Turtur, which is quite charming to me. I like that. So that's where I would get the Elric books. I would first try a used bookstore. I have a great one in Modesto that I could go to if I'm going into town. You can find one near you, and a lot of the people that work at those will be able to help you find what you're looking for. You're like, is there stuff that's like, what's some other stuff? What are some contemporaries of Moorcock? And they'll point you to all of those. I should come up with like a list of classic fantasy that I think is like good to read that's not Tolkien. Because there's a lot of great stuff that I only read till way later because it wasn't in the bookstores. Like I went to the bookstores, normal bookstores 10, 15 years ago, and it's just a bunch of schlock. Like there was a point where I thought I didn't like fantasy because it was all boring garbage. And then I figured out I liked fantasy when I realized that there was all this classic fantasy that was way more like Tolkien, which I loved, and was more like Moorcock. I discovered Michael Moorcock pretty late. I wasn't really reading him as a teenager or anything. Had to kind of find that stuff later. So unfortunately, publishing has emphasized the garbage-filled tome rather than the like tight, compact, surrealist fantasy stories. But I prefer, as an adult, a story that respects my time and doesn't fill itself up with meaningless nothing. Rather fills itself up with story and impactful dialogue, which is Michael Moorcock. That's why I love him. Point out the good stuff. Do you read Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson? I did not read Kidnapped. And if you do, you think Alan Breck shot the Red Fox or not? I did not read that one. He wrote, what did he write? Treasure Island? Who am I thinking of? What book is he known for? Treasure Island. I've read Treasure Island. I don't think I've read Kidnapped. Which of these have I read? Black Arrow. I think I read the Black Arrow, but I don't remember it. Or like read it as a teenager. I mean, even this old stuff. Like I didn't read A Princess of Mars until later. I didn't even know it existed because my teachers didn't bother teaching anything about literature. Like any literature that was popular in the first half of the 20th century, it's like it didn't exist in academia. Instead, we read things that weren't popular. It's kind of how it was. This is where we ended up. All right. Let's play a little bit. Probably should read Kidnapped. It's probably a good classic book. John C. Wright wrote that he doesn't believe that Harry Potter, Harry Dresden, etc. don't promote an occultist worldview, but Elric does. I don't know if Elric promotes an occultist worldview. There's a there's a slightly Gnostic element to it, but I use basically the same element in my books. I shall talk about it for a minute. I've been meaning to do a separate video on it, and so maybe I will. Where did I put Crown of Sight? It's sitting in the back here. By the Buster Sword. My office is such a wreck right now. I need to clean it all up. I got all my Berserk tomes back here, which I haven't been wanting to read more Berserk. These. Awesome. Love Berserk. I need to do that analysis of Helsing. It doesn't really hold up. So, Crown of Sight has kind of encapsulated one of the... This actually will have a big impact on the next big fantasy book I'm coming out with. This and another book that I'm going to come out with that's in the same series, what I call the Eternal Dream Legends series. So in this, you have a magical artifact. If you haven't read this, it's a short read. You can read it in like 3 hours. And it's basically just one of the concepts here was fantasy books are boring until the last 200 pages. I'm like, well, I'm just going to write the last 100 pages. So it's basically the last 100 pages of a fantasy novel. So it's all the good shit and none of the crap. And I establish what's going on really quickly. And so you get a very quick idea of what's actually at stake. So there's an artifact that one of the characters in this creates. This artifact is a book that has the capacity to alter reality, at least the perception of reality. What he writes in the book becomes history in a literal sense. Now, this is just making more literal what already exists, which is when you write down in history, becomes history. You write it down, it gets carried forward in time. You're sending a message to the future when you write a book. And people pick it up and they read the history of the past and they think that's what happened. And as far as they know, that's what happened. You have written down a reality for future people. So how exactly Scipio Africanus beat Hannibal? We don't know for certain. We know what was written down, but history was written by the victors. So of course they're going to emphasize some special quality of Scipio's, or how he convinced this tribe to join his cavalry, or he won because of these tactics. We don't really know. We don't, because you're filtering it through the lens of somebody who maybe has a reason to write it down that way. It's to emphasize the glory of Rome, and Hannibal's fearsomeness is only emphasized because of how great Scipio was to overcome him, if that makes any sense. So it just makes that literal. When you write it in the book, it becomes literally true. At least that's the perception. And that'll actually come into play in the next book. So if you haven't read Crown of Sight, I do recommend it. It does have themes that are going to carry over. But the bigger themes of my fantasy books is that the world is created by the people in it, rather than created specifically by a creator god in a very specific fashion. Rather, the creator god, who's called the dreamer in this, creates the world, the concepts, the materials that make up the world, and it's the dreamers, it's the people who actually fashioned the world. And I just took it one step forward than what our reality actually is. In our reality, you build a house. Even the concept of a house is not something natural. Rather, somebody thought up how a house should be. Over time, more people took this idea of a house and refined it and made variations on it, built new houses, till we have this thing called a house. The concept of a house is something that is man-made, in a sense. It's something that man has created through his own thoughts and efforts and skill, and physically made as well. So I took it one step further, which is that people basically unconsciously are altering the nature of the real world without realizing it. And over time, as people make more permanent things, the world becomes more permanent. So the world starts off in chaos. It starts off in flux. And this actually, Michael Moorcock has this as well. At the edge of the world is chaos, a gap, a mixing of nothing. And as each empire goes to the edge, they discover new lands. The new lands are literally created out of nothing. They didn't exist. And the old empire fades away because there's new things out there. So it's this cycle of order, of chaos yielding to order, which destroys the old order. So the new order is chaos to the old order. It destroys the old order. So Melnibone ruled the world until the world got bigger. It literally got bigger in Moorcock's world. The edge of chaos drew back, and new people and new lands sprang into existence because of the request of, like, if you read the dream, I think it's the Dream of Earl Lawbeck. That's what's being explained. So there's similar things in my book. The world starts in this state of flux where people can fashion the world in a literal sense. And then as people are inhabiting things that others have made, the world becomes more permanent and becomes more set in place. So in The Crown of Sight, it's another side of that, which is that the ideas you inherit from people that have already made them. They fashioned your reality and you're continuing to fashion it. You are sub-creating the creation as you go along. And that's basically the big, quote, Gnostic theme there, is that the people, rather than some demiurge making an artificial world, the people are actually making the world. It's the concepts that are, and the materials, the idea of a rock, that are basically divine, and it's the people who arrange those things into their states where they are permanent in some sense. And as we get further in the series, you'll see that there's things that could possibly undo that, and then the danger of having things be completely permanent. And if you were to take it far enough, it's the idea that, like, our idea of science is basically magic. We've created magic, as we go along. Science is indistinguishable. Sufficiently advanced technology, it appears to be magical. It's that people have thought about what should be and have basically made it real. It's just taking all of that to the next step, if you would, next level. So anyway, essentially, Wright's view is that people seek the occult out of a lust for power and a haughty view of their own worthiness to hold power, and that Elric promotes that worldview. Well, Elric, I don't think he promotes it, because there's horrible, horrible consequences to Elric doing that. So it's really about the terrible consequences of seeking out power. Elric at first resists it, and then once he has it, that power has a mind of its own, kind of like the Ring of Power. The sword has a mind of its own. Stormbringer will do what it will do, and it abandons Elric at many times. It is not a good friend to Elric. It forces Elric to kill friends, and it abandons Elric when he needs the power the most. That it's a fickle thing, and not something to be trusted, and not something which is good. Rather, it tortures Elric and destroys him in the end. So I don't see that as being promoting that is what you should do. I also don't see Harry Potter as necessarily promoting the occult either. I don't know what the third one was. I've only read the first two Dresden Files books, and I didn't really like them, but I don't really see it as promoting the occult per se, because the occult is built into this idea of a hidden wizard world in both of those. So, I mean, maybe it does because there's an occult world in it, but I don't really see that in Elric at all. Elric's really about a tortured soul whose desire to be moral is destroyed by his power and his lust for power, too. I'd love to see David and John C. Wright on the stream discussing fantasy together. That would be a lot of fun. So anyway, that's how I view the themes of Elric. What are your thoughts about gendered schooling? All boys, girls classes. Well, since I homeschool, that's not an option because I have a boy and a girl. I think there's big advantages to that, and a lot of cultures segregate boys and girls in different capacities for very good reasons. I think co-ed PE is generally a bad idea. I grew up with co-ed PE, and what it does is boys and girls don't have the same physical capabilities, especially in high school. So you are either, you're kind of half-assing one or the other. It's like you're not really pushing the boys to be athletic, and the girls are kind of not interested in it at a loss. So I really don't believe in co-ed PE. if you had a classroom environment and you segregated boys and girls, there's advantages to that. The advantages, I think, are very profound in middle school and high school, where boys and girls are sexually interested in each other. I know we don't like to think of adolescence in sexual sense, but that's what their hormones are doing. They're making them interested in girls and interested in the opposite sex much more intensely than they were prior to that, where they didn't really view girls as something particularly interesting. So having that distraction removed can be very helpful, right? And it also encourages the bonding of boys with each other, and men with each other as they grow up, and women with each other as they grow up, which is, if we look at most societies throughout history, that's where most of the bonds are. Women bond with each other because raising children it's a big female pursuit. Giving birth requires female experience and expertise. It's kind of the domain of women, is childbirth, and especially early child rearing. And as they get older, of course, boys are going to learn more from their fathers because they need to learn how to be a man. But particularly childbirth and stuff, that tends to be a woman's bond. I know with my family, my wife has three sisters, and they've all been having kids. And so when one has a kid, it's like they all come over and take care of that person. Those bonds are important. I think it's not a bad thing to have them segregated. I think definitely as a middle school teacher, I would have really preferred to have the classes be completely segregated. It would have made things a lot easier. Having boys and girls together, boys act totally different when there's no girls around. And I had a de facto all-boy class once, and I even had the same boys in other classes. They acted differently when there were no girls around. They were way more into their actual studies. They weren't distracted. They weren't trying to impress a girl. They were trying to impress the other boys, but that becomes more competitive, and you can actually harness that and get great things out of competitive boys. I think it's probably better. But there's upsides and downsides to it. Maybe some mingling is good. You can have some co-ed classes, and you want some to have them, especially PE, you want them to be completely separate, in my opinion. That's just because they have different physical capabilities more than anything. Harry Potter's produced an entire army of cat-worshipping poser neo-vegans. Has it? I could believe it. People who are really, really... Harry Potter's not bad. It's a fine kid series. It's got some good stories in it, very likable characters, and a fun, interesting world that is fun to escape to for people. But man, there's some people that take that crap way too seriously, and it's like, can you just read another book? This is not the only book on the planet. Why are you so into this? It's like people, I call Harry Potter they're like the Metallica of fantasy. You meet people that are into Metallica, and they're like, Metallica! They're like super into Metallica, and then you're like, oh yeah, man, have you heard the new Iron Maiden record? And they're like, no. Oh, cool, I just got the new Megadeth record. Megadeth sucks! Do you listen to any, and you can just go down the list, like, they don't listen to any metal bands besides Metallica. It's like Metallica's the only thing they listen to, and they love Metallica. Now, I like Metallica. Metallica's put out some great albums. I like Metallica. And these are the people who get personally offended if you're like, well, this album really sucks, Like, Death Magnetic sucks. I've had more people get upset about Death Magnetic sucks than Saint Anger sucks. It's like they're willing to accept that Saint Anger sucks, but as soon as I point out that Death Magnetic sucks, it's like the only way you can view Death Magnetic as a really good record is if you just don't listen to anything. Like, Metallica's the only thing you listen to. Well, yeah, it's better than Saint Anger, but it's so much worse than anything else you could listen to for an hour in the metal world. So yeah, they're like the Metallica of fantasy. If you want to know who the Black Sabbath would be, it'd be J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien's like the Black Sabbath, which is like, there's one really, really famous work. Everyone listens to Paranoid, so everyone likes that. Everyone likes Lord of the Rings, but they don't read the Silmarillion. There's more stuff there, and it's good for everyone. Some of these kids kind of grew up. I knew some of them, man. Very sad. Anyway. The problem is with entertainment fans becoming obsessed with their hobby. It becomes the de facto reason to live. I agree. That's that's the big problem in general. Still, one of my most viewed videos is Metallica versus Megadeth. I don't know why, but people still click on it, and most of the comments about Metallica are just completely irrational. It's clear that they don't listen to anything besides Metallica. So the Harry Potter fans, all they read is Harry Potter. It's like, hey, have you ever read this? Have you ever read Dragon Riders of Pern, since you like female authors so much? They're like, no, I'll just read Harry Potter again. Silly muggles. I want to listen to metal because of the cover art is always so dope, but it's just not my thing. Yeah. Everyone's different. There's a lot of different stuff there. I tend to listen to a lot more power metal now than like the harsher stuff these days, as time goes on. All right. We could chat some more as we play a game. Let's see if I can get this set up here. Properties. Get this here. Not hooked up. Let's try that again. Welp. Sometimes there's a little problem getting this to show up. Let's click away here. I might have to start it in the regular environment here before we do beta. Anyway, we'll do some more chat while I'm trying to get this set up. Honestly, I know nothing about music. Just listen to soundtracks. I like when they use rock or metal. It's fine. We live in a time where you really don't have to know that much. It used to be you'd have to kind of plug into a fandom just to have access to good music. You'd have to read Metal Maniacs or other stuff like that in order to be aware that certain things exist. All right, let's see if I can get this set up. I may have to restart my beta or something. Yeah, why don't we try that? We will restart the PlayStation. Here, go boo-boo-boo. Bup-bup-bup-bup. Once I figured out how to get this streaming, I'm like, this is great, because then I could play the game off stream and all my weird little, time loss things, and then hop back on stream and play it some more. I like the concept of metal, loud, rousing music that conjures up epic visions of knights, dragons, but in practice I usually find it too noisy. Yeah, I had a friend who used to call it an orgy of sound, and that's it. It kind of gets really loud. There we go. Okay. All right, this should work now. There's Adrenaline. Boom. That's that PSP startup music. That's fun. And then I think I can actually project this to my middle monitor. Oops. No, let's not do it there. There we go. Beautiful. Look at that memory stick with 389 gigs on it. We got a lot of free space for games, my friends. I haven't even loaded all of the PS Vita games I have that are PSN games that I own. I haven't even loaded all those up on this thing yet since I hacked it. So I put in if you're wondering how I have so much space, you're like, how do you have a memory card that big for your Vita? So it's an adapter that goes in your game card slot called the PS to Vita. I think is what it is. No, SD to Vita. And so it goes in there, and if you've hacked your firmware and everything, you can access it like a memory card. And so I have a regular 32 gig memory card in here that I bought however many millions of years ago. And then I put this in here, and I just put in a 512 gig SD card, and that's my memory card. I'm like, I want infinite space for this. I never want to run out of space to hold my games. Go in here. And so like these are all PSP games and PS1 games. I've got like pretty much, not all of them. I got like most of the PSP games on here. There's a couple that I don't have on here yet that I have to get like the rip for. And then these are PlayStation games. So here's Final Fantasy V, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, that version, Final Fantasy VIII. I think we'll play the PC version of Final Fantasy VIII. I think there's even Final Fantasy VII. Is that it? Okay. Anyway, we're going to go down here and play Final Fantasy II. You can actually convert your PS1 games into a format that you can use on Adrenaline here on your Vita, which is really useful, in my opinion. A synth soundtrack option for metalheads, especially black metal fans, and Dungeon Synth. Yeah. I like Dungeon Synth. Here we go. Yeah, you can do this with an emulator, but I really want to play it on my Vita. Oh, thank you for the $5. Moroccan Secret Agent Review Tech USA. Do you think there's a chance that Elric of Melniboné will get his own multimedia appearance? Is this even desirable with how poor adaptations are now? So 2 questions. First one is, I think it's quite possible. I don't think it's necessarily desirable, though, because, yeah, Elric is not really woke fantasy, and to woke him up, it's going to be tragic, I think. But it's not really, it's subversive, not superversive. So you may actually get a good adaptation because it was subversive 50 years ago. So I don't know. This is the town of Altair. The Imperial forces haven't been deployed this far out yet. I suppose it's only a matter of time though. Hey, we talked to this thief who's like, I'm a thief. Should you tell someone you just met that you're a thief? And this is the armor shop. So we can buy, we have 400 gil. One of the things we can do is actually buy, everybody can use everything in this game. So we can buy like a buckler, and we can just buy like one of everything, and then you'll get, clothes are actually a downgrade for them, weird. Leather gloves. Okay. So yeah, I think you could see that as people are, as networks continue to invest in fantasy until like the train runs out, you might get a Moorcock adaptation. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but it's a thing. And it might be okay because it was already subversive to begin with. Let's see here. Buy a... Let's actually see what we got on here. Let's go to equipment. Oh, he's already got a broadsword. And buckler. Head. Oh, she's got a bow. Leather cap. Arms. Leather gloves. Buckler. Bought an extra broadsword I didn't need to buy, but whatever. Hi, David. I'm a carrier taxivator. No one screws the IRS over more than me. What? Can you lower the game sound? I can, thank you. Yeah, I can do that. Totally. I think I had it turned up because I was liking the music last night. You might want to check out the Space Quest. You might like if you like point and click adventure games. I do like point and click adventure games actually. So, all right. I think we could give her like a shield too. I don't know. If they couldn't do a faithful Dark Tower adaptation, which is pretty much the anti-Lord of the Rings, what hope does Elric have? I don't know, but you're probably right. And I think we could buy some magic here. Fire Tome. Fire, Thunder, Blizzard, Cure. Let's get Cure to start. And let's leave. Let's see if we can go grind some. This is funny. Alright, let's grind some guys. This really does look better on the Vita probably than it does on your screen because there's like a lag. There's like a lag here. Let's try spamming attacks for a bit. There we go. This is the newer battle music. I think I like this newer version. Alright, we killed the goblins! See, increases stamina and stuff. Alex Jones got more stamina here. A little bit more Alex Jones here. I'm going to bring the mic a little closer. There we go. Whoa! An airship flew by. What was that about? It's good to see Maria again. I had a crush on her when I was a kid as I played this game. Well, her name is Marisu. Not Maria, it's Marisu. Yo, Marisu! Get a shield levels. We can kind of level everybody up a little bit here. I think I could spam attack for now. I think we'll make Marisu like a white mage. There's no set classes in this. So you can just do whatever. Magic. Items. Cure Tome. Alright. And go to Magic. Cure. Bam. And see, she'll level up Cure as she goes. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what this is. Gatria. Alright. Interdimensional space vampires, Alex. Alex Jones is my favorite Isekai character. This is the village of Gatria. Finn is just over there across the lake, see? We don't need to stay in the inn yet, so... An item shop. We need a lot of items right now. Trying to see if they have like some better stuff here. Nothing happens. Looks like a statue of Mary. Nothing happens. Yeah, Marisu is Mary Sue, but there's not enough character spaces to write Mary Sue, so I wrote Marisu. And more of the same stuff. Let's see what we've got. We can buy another buckler. And we can buy a leather cap. And equip those. We'll see if she can wear a buckler and no, she can't wear a bow and a buckler. So what we'll actually do is give her a broadsword and a buckler. Give her shields up a little bit, and then go back to the bow later. And formation. There we go. Everybody's front row now. Get some shield levels. Let's see what these people have to say for themselves. Gatry and Altair haven't fallen into the clutches of the Empire yet. And once the Dreadnought is complete, nothing will be able to stop the Empire. Very Star Warsy. The Imperial forces have occupied Castle Finn. The gates are drawn and no one can enter. And with Imperial troops and monsters roaming the streets, the city isn't any better off. There's a pub just on the outskirts of Finn. When the Empire invaded, the barkeep didn't make it out in time. They say he's still working there, pouring drinks for the Imperials. Right, that's the church. Let's see if we can look in the well. In the first game, you look in the well and it's like, no, it's just a well. It's really nothing special. More goblins. Good job, Sam Hyde. So if there's anything else to discover around here. We're in the swamp now, I guess. Ooh! Uh-oh. Ghosts. Well, shouldn't have walked into that swamp, huh? The party was defeated. Alright. Game over. Don't go into the swamp. Don't go into the swamp. Buy a buckler. Leather cap. Buy the same things again. Leather gloves. And then we'll buy some white magic. I don't need to buy another weapon. We already have some basic weapons. I'll buy cure though. Didn't want it to be this way. As per your metal complaint earlier, I'd recommend a ban Manila Road. I like Manila Road. Swamp people. I mean, it could be Sam Harris because this guy is a troglodyte and can't speak. And is kind of dumb. So we can make it Sam Harris. In case you're wondering, I don't have a high opinion of Sam Harris. Magic? No. Items. So cure tone. Alright. Buckler. Equipment. Put that buckler on. These guys are kind of equally armed. Alright, let's level. As soon as I can get out of town somehow. Look, what's at the end of this peninsula? Another peninsula. This looks like the part of the old map. Fun fact, did you know that one of the Sam H's favorite fantasies is to defend his life against the Mary Sue with the Muay Thai switch kick? Harris existing dunks on Harris. Sites wary of being banned by the tech industrial complex might ban political discussion if they are message boards. Yeah, I could see that. But if you make a private message board, you can set it up so that like there's no like web crawlers can't even read it. That's what you have to do. You gotta set up the formation a little different here. Well, those guys miss a lot, huh? Miss. I could totally see that, you know. I mean, that's been a thing for a while now, too, is like making sites that are, you know, we're apolitical. I don't really believe in apolitical because I don't believe people are apolitical. Sorry, I'm rearranging the screen a little bit. I think it's going to be better over here. All right. Then we can see all the numbers. See all them numbers! You don't like Sam? Hitler is better than Trump Harris? I'm surprised. Well, I mean, at least Hitler stayed in power, right? Might be more skilled at that, at least. Might need to get out of the swamp, because of the swamp people. Final Fantasy II Part 1 was last night. I wasn't tired, so I felt like continuing to play, and so I just did the intro. Just the opening cutscenes. Which I voice acted through for fun. You guys can check that out if you want. I'll need to quit here in about 20 minutes. Watch that bow animation carefully. Oh, he should be in the front. She should be in the back. He should be in the front. Okay. That's fine for now. And we'll give her a shield and a broadsword here. I'm going to talk to everyone here, so we can just skip that mess. Does this guy have anything good for sale? Javelin, broadsword. We can do a javelin. She needs some better stuff. Give her. I don't have anything here. Let's give her a javelin. Why not? So we can level up shields. You can also have your characters like slap each other empty-handed if you want, and that works. So that might be fun. You can have everybody wear 2 shields as well, which is kind of fun. But you really don't need to power level your characters that much. You know, if you have a character who's kind of getting whacked a little too much, you can slap them around and raise their HP. Buy another buckler. And some other armor. Alright, let's get out of here. Alright. Give her the javelin. Buckler. Some leather armor. Right. Formation. Here we go. I don't think there's really anything to gain in this town. So we'll just go. Could buy some like healing potions, but we don't need to do that yet. In fact, it's preferable to just level up heal and then we can state it in. It's putting me out above the little town here. Now, Sam Harris needs some help. He's running low on HP. Just to go magic. level up Cure. Yeah, this is a game where you can attack your own people and level them up. If you want to. But really, you can just play it like a normal JRPG, and it just works. The system should just work fine. But it's kind of like an Elder Scrolls game in that you level up your skills. You don't, rather than leveling up your level. Like your level, rather than giving you a bunch of stats based on your class, it's all your skills. See, Marisu got health. Her health went up. So, like, if you want to level your guys up, you can just put them in the front line and have them do stuff. Come level up magic. You can level anything up that time. Some goblins. Hilodurus' Conan the Barbarian delivers what I'd like metal to be. The closest to metal that I tend to like is stuff like Zeppelins and the Song of Queen's Hammer to Fall. I mean, you might like Manowar. Manowar is very Robert E. Howard influenced. You know, you might like Blind Guardian. Of course, Twilight Force. Like fantasy metal. Yeah, Donald Trump will be living in rent-free in their heads for years. I mean, it's like it's an obsession at this point, and that's why I think they'll attempt to prosecute him for something. At the very least, they'll try. Someone will somewhere, and that's actually a big break with tradition. It's kind of a violation of most Maiorum, and once you violate those traditions, then you're basically sending a signal that everyone has free reign to do the same. Level up Cure. Warriors of the world unite. Unfortunately, I feel like Manowar just doesn't come out with that much music. You know, it's so rare that they come out with anything new. They just like tour, and I don't know what else they do. I think they're getting pretty old. I think they're kind of ready to retire. They were all born in the 50s, I think, so now they're like over 60 at this point. I think Dave Mustaine will be 60 years old this year. I think he said something on his last birthday. He's like, I didn't expect to live this long. Is the Vita worth picking up? If you can get a good deal on it, I think it is. It's a tremendous system, and if you hack it, it really unleashes its inner power. It runs emulators really well. There's a bunch of emulators you can set up with, like RetroArch. It will run all PSP games. You don't have to really... If you have PSP games and you don't know how to rip them, you can just get the ISOs. It's not hard to get them. They're all up on Internet Archive. So all the old ROMs are for PSP. And you can just get the ones that you have or the ones you need. Whatever you need. Uh-oh, poison. You're going to have to get like an item to cure that. Yeah, looking at a complete legal, financial, and political persecution of Trump until total victory is achieved. Now the problem with that is that once you do that, you're basically saying it is okay to... I still have poison. No, I guess poison falls off. Okay, well that's good. Yeah, 2 bow. Like you can... These are your actual levels. Like your levels are in the things you do, not in the... not in your... level, I suppose. Level up the... See, she has really low HP. We'd like to raise her HP, and what we can do to do that is... we will just... remove that. And you can just have one character stand there with a shield and get hit. Just to kind of raise her HP. I missed. Or you could do this. You could put two shields and just slap her. Just slap her around. Slap Marisu around and she'll gain some. She'll gain some HP. I wonder if all the people who called for Bush to be tried for his crimes will make an attempt again. Yeah, like what crimes? Like the crimes is just relative. Crimes is an appeal to rules, and rules are whatever you can enforce, and rules are whatever you make up. So people need to remember that. Like, that stuff doesn't really matter that much. And then she can heal herself, so she gets more HP and more magic. There we go. She got a little more HP. See? She gained some HP. 5 HP. And then she can use her magic on herself. Bam. Let's do that a little bit. Do you see Donald Trump giving a massive speech in the near future just to shove it in? I see him... Yeah, maybe. I mean, if I were him, I would just not bother. If I were him, I'd be somewhere where they couldn't get me. I'd be in Russia or something. Ukraine. No, wait, Joe Biden's got a lot of ins in Ukraine. Oh, she died! We're gonna have to, Hornet, one-shot her. See, this is why you need to get their HP up. I gotta res her. We're gonna turn Marisu into the ultimate Mary Sue. Oh, no, wait, no, we don't want to stay at the end. Where's the church? Where's the church? Is there a church here? Yeah, the gameplay, by the way, is a little bit smoother on my screen than it is on yours, I think. Just because of the weirdness of outputting video on the Vita. It's just like a little bit of a weird thing. It's the church. As you pray, a warm light suddenly envelops you, and a voice overflowing with compassion rings in your ears. Soul that wanders in death, return now from that distant land where sorrow and darkness hold sway. Here come the angels! I decided to pick up a lot of classics this week. The Iliad, the Odyssey, Divine Comedy, Dorian Gray, and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It's good. almost leveled up Cure there. Let's see if we can get a little bit more HP for our girl, for our Marty Sue. There are indicators that Trump left some people in the government to sabotage Biden. I don't think so. He had trouble with loyalty as it was. I'm not believing that. I mean, he might try, but it's not gonna... No one's gonna be loyal to him. I think that's a lot of wishful thinking. Yeah, it sounds like Q to me. Which is generally wishful thinking. Wow, he really, like, wrecked her. You're slapping Marty Sue way too hard. I like how Sam Hyde and Alex Jones ran off, leaving Mary Sue to defend her almost lifeless body by herself. Hey, she said she doesn't need a man's protection. Now, as your spells go up, they get more powerful, but they also cost more. So that's something that you gotta watch out for. Now, the Cure spell costs more than 1 HP. It costs 2 MP. Escaped. There's a, I mean, I'm sure there's a, like a Project Gutenberg or something of the entire Play-Doh. Of like everything by Play-Doh. So I would probably recommend that. Last Days of Socrates is a really good one to start with, probably, and then you can go from there. Yes. Pleasant dreams. All right. Now we can get some more equipment and more. Let's see what our equipment's like. Now we need gloves and a hat. And gloves and a hat for her. Sound distortion here. That's interesting. There we go. A little more defense here. Let's equip our broadsword. Now we can learn some more magic. What's cool about magic in this game is because it's just you don't lose a slot like with Cure 2. You can do 16 spells. So if Cure is 1, you just keep leveling up Cure. And you get everybody everybody learns Cure because it's really good. And then you can maybe fire. Have Marty Sue start doing fire. Q-Tards screwed over everyone that tried to keep the peace during the rally. Even though most of the Q-Tards didn't mean to push bad optics, they still did a knock-up job screwing everything up. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't a PSYOP, can you differentiate that at all? Like, it looks so much like a PSYOP. It's indistinguishable from, like, a left-wing thing. Now we can go about killing some more guys. And she's... Oh, I like the spell animation there. I don't remember how you level up MP. I think it's just doing magic. And we just use these guys' cure spells passively. So try to get her HP up slightly. Like 35 is still a little too low. Really want it to be like 40. Sam Harris, atheist beliefs, blocks all magic attacks. Now, what's really funny is if you play Final Fantasy Tactics, that's actually a thing. So you have faith and courage. And so if you have more faith, you have more magic power. But you also take more magic damage. Now, if you have less faith, you take less magic damage and you have less magic power. So if you want to set up like a pure warrior, his faith would be 0. He'd be an atheist. And so there's like, you could be an atheist in that, and like your magic just doesn't really have a big effect on you. And you can max out your courage, which would make you like immune to like a bunch of fear and stuff like that. But it's really funny. If you have 0 faith, you can't do magic, but you also are not going to take much of your magic damage. There we go. Kind of a fun little thing. See if nobody needs healing. Like, we're not taking any damage right now. Gonna work our way forward here. Does she have magic? Fire level 2? I think this is level 2. Well, we'll keep doing fire. I believe in God when full hard steel is all you need. What's up, Bradford? Hope you're having a good Saturday. I'm about ready to stitch it up here. I think we decided the swamp creatures are too powerful. Poison drops off your character after battle in this one, which is really helpful. That's really convenient. I'm going to override it. Game has been saved. Alright. Work our way north here. Oh, no, I think I'm going the right way. Ever heard of Mencius Moldbug? Yeah. I'd have to... I'm not the game of the talk. magic. No, we don't want to do level cure magic. Cure? What are you curing? Odyssey. Yep. Oh, I guess you could do it to all of them. Alright, well that's helpful. So we can go in here. Finn. Uh-oh. It's just as we've heard. The city is crawling with Imperial soldiers. We have to be careful. Make sure not to get too close. We have to avoid them. This guy's blocking the inn. That's lovely. And blocking all the... Oh, you can buy armor. That's good. There's nobody here. Okay, the armor store is empty. Uh-oh. There's monsters in town. Okay. I didn't realize I could hit all of them at once. That is really helpful. Oh, we're already at level 2 fire. Sweet. Well, that wiped him out. Now we're out of MP, though. No one here either. Okay. We can buy some magic, maybe? No one here. Okay. More monsters. I wonder if we can, like, fight a soldier or something. Yeah, I really need to stitch this one up or, you know, stop. Message speed, I have it off. Dash on. Whoa. I think I'm just used to regular Final Fantasy. Is there a dash button? Oh, okay. Circle makes you dash. Well, that's helpful. Rebel curves. Alright, you have to run. Alright, so now we know that those guys are gonna wreck your day. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna probably call it there. I already saved the game before I got there, so it's fine. Anyway, guys, it's been great. So hope you guys will have fun. Join me next time, maybe tomorrow night, and we'll go from there. Listen to the music. Okay, but I do appreciate it, and I hope you guys will have a good day. Rest of your day, and I appreciate the super chat as always. Any super chats are very appreciated. So you guys have a good day, and don't be afraid to homeschool your kids if you are worried about that. You can make that choice. You can do it. It is totally possible. So have a great day.